Hey, what's up, y'all? And of course, welcome back to another Alternative Factuals video. The funny part is I wasn't really planning on making a video today, to be honest with you. I was actually just going to essentially, I was just testing out some hardware that I have, a new mic, and using my recorder that I use because I have a client project on Monday. But here I am making a video. Anyways, I make this video obviously after the whole Rittenhouse verdict and how crazy that was, and I'm going to say, like, it's out of control. But also too, I wasn't surprised. If you were surprised by the verdict, trust me, maybe you're a little bit more optimistic than the rest of us, but that's besides the point. Now I'm going to use that to kind of segue into the purpose and the reason why cases like this and how real life scenarios affect comic books, especially when it comes to minority groups, Black people, Asians, whatever the case may be, because this is also part of the reason why I think we have some of these big issues when it comes to the real world, is because overall, I think a lot of people are unaware of how systemic racism works and a lot of those systems that fall into place when it comes to even comic books. But also, I think in reality too, most stories in film, comics, video games to some level is usually based on real world events. So people seem to have this disconnect when it comes to things that they may not agree with or have personally experienced when it comes to, white people. So I just wanted to take a moment to kind of use this opportunity to kind of, I guess, have this discussion and I guess the whole trickle effect it has on industries like the comic book industry, but also the importance of having good writers, good illustrators who are very much aware and understanding of the situations that we deal with in this world and can write good stories and also still tell the message that it needs to tell without doing it in a way that's, like I said, shoving it down people's throat. Now, someone did come up with an argument from the last video that I think is a pretty fair point, is that most of the time people, when they have a choice to avoid something that they disagree with or don't like, they will choose to avoid it because they have the option. So sometimes we have to force it down their throat because it's going to be uncomfortable. They already read it, and once it's in their mind, they can't necessarily get rid of it per se, and then it kind of leads to a chain reaction that could potentially lead them down a path of getting more information, which I do think is entirely within reason. And even in some cases, when it comes to school, for example, you learn things you didn't really want to learn, but in reality, once you do learn it, you become an adult, and sometimes it can send you down a path to getting more information about something specific that you may have learned within school or college. So I think that's a fair point, and I'm going to use that fair point to kind of direct this video. So when writing comic books, especially around real world events like this, I think it's important that we just overall discuss, first of all, let's just say this off the rip, that comic books, no matter what, what background you come from, who you are, how long ago you were reading them, comic books were always super duper political and based off of political agendas. That has been the reason they were made. Superman fought in World War II. He fought in the Cold War. Like, he did all that. Superman did all that. Batman, all of them participated fictionally in events that were based off of real world events. So that's just number one. Now, number two, the reason why it's important that the stories that we tell reflect real life from time to time is because people seem to can't really relate to events in the real world until it's in a fictional place. Let me give you a prime example. X-Men, for example. X-Men is, I'm not doing the whole Xavier is Martin Luther King and the whole Magneto is Malcolm X. I'm not saying that. But I'm going to take on the point, the more obvious standpoint. Mutants are a group of people who are absurdly powerful, and in a world of other superheroes, of like Blue Marvel, Iron Man, and Captain America, other superheroes who have powers, somehow the mutants seem to always be the ones targeted simply because they were born that way, because they were born a certain way. Some of them may look normal but have powers, and others may look weird and still have powers, and nonetheless they were born that way. But people seem to have a problem more with the mutants simply because they were born that way compared to every other hero who were made that way. So it's really out of control, and especially with characters who are double negatives in the comic book world, who are mutants, like Storm, for example, where she's black and a mutant and a woman, so that's technically triple negative. So she just has a whole bunch going on. And cases like Blue Marvel, double negative, he's black and he has powers, but he's not a mutant though, so it's more racial, but you get the point. Nonetheless, these scenarios are important to tell in comic books because people discuss them. You can go to any Reddit board, any Quora, situation that they got going on when they talk about it, and then you'll understand that people talk about these things. And even if it makes them uncomfortable, even if they disagree, the conversation is important and needs to be had, because if you don't talk about it, if you don't address it, nothing will ever change. And it's important that the verdict that we got from this whole Rittenhouse case, I think it's important that at some point we're probably going to get a story that's very similar to this. And some people are going to say, hey, this is super political, it doesn't belong in comics. Well, I'm here to tell you there's a reason why comics have always worked when it comes to political agendas and getting certain messages out there in regards to people's personal beliefs since they were created. Because people have this thing where if they feel like it's fake, they can kind of detach themselves from it a little bit. But if the message is too real in some level, they can acknowledge that this is real, but also that they themselves are not in that situation, but still kind of get that experience that they kind of living through it through the characters that are taking place in the story. So no matter what their opinion is at the end of the story or at the end of the arc, they've already read it. They've already consumed that information. And that's why it is important to tell these stories. Do I think every single story should be this way? Not necessarily, but it absolutely is important to tell these stories because people will at some point read them, and they need to read them whether they agree or disagree, and the conversations need to be had. And I think this is why it's important that we take this route when it comes to us, people of color, making our own comic books, our own stuff, just to get conversations going, because also a lot of this stuff comes simply out of ignorance. Even though we live in an age of information and technology where everything is accessible, people are still ignorant and people are still very much naive. And so we need to have that conversation and let them know their point of view, their perception, their opinions are not the only opinions, and their life isn't the only life. So let me know what you think in the comments. Just a real quick discussion. And if you're new to the channel, like, share, and of course subscribe, and I hope to see you later on. Peace out.